Hey guys, we are back, and if you're watching this, it should be Thursday. I'll do my best to review what we went over yesterday quickly on civic duties, and then today we're going to continue on and go over civic responsibilities. Remember that at the end of today's video, to post your review questions and comments, as you guys did for the bell ringer, and also complete your end of lesson questions that are on Google Forms. So there will be a link on the stream. You can do that, click it, and make sure you get that done. Then also, and I'm sorry for this, you also have to complete a quiz. It shouldn't be that hard, especially if you paid attention. And then there is a review guide. For today, we're finishing up with our video. You have your review questions and comments, end of lesson questions, a quiz, and then a review that I'd like you to study because I do want you to take a test tomorrow. I know that is a lot for one day, definitely too much, so I do apologize, but I know you guys can handle it, and I know you're capable. Now, to help you guys a bit, since I'm throwing so much at you on a Thursday and then you have a test Friday, I will allow you to get on during our live video chat, and you guys can work together. You can ask me questions, you can ask your classmates questions. So there's my compromise that you can basically do your test with a partner. Now, as a quick review, yesterday we went over civic duties. We started with a bell ringer and we asked you to describe what a good citizen is and why that should be you. We defined a duty as something you need to do by law, and we also gave some major examples of your civic duties that include obeying the law, attending school, paying taxes, serving in the armed forces if drafted, and then also serving for jury duty. There's our review. Today we're going to be looking at civic responsibilities. So this is the second part of what you read in your text. So we're going to keep moving on through this section, and then that's it for chapter 4. A big distinction to start with is that you do not have to do these things. Civic responsibility is not mandated. You won't get locked up. You won't get thrown in jail. You won't get fined. But by their own words, their own definition, it's just responsible to do it. So we probably should do it, but you don't have to. Now, to start, an awesome responsibility that we have, one of the first ones and one that most people do, is to vote. Years ago, I would have said that voting had been pretty low, but it looks like in recent decades it was close to 50%. Sometimes you get closer to 60%, and those are high, right? It's a high number when the voting, especially for presidents, gets to about 60%. When it's not in a presidential election year, many times the voting's actually under that, like even worse. It looks like this election we're over 65%, maybe 66, 67%, which is like an all-time high. I know there are some conspiracies going around that, it's crazy that we have these many votes, but we should actually look at it as like a glass half full, glass half empty approach and say, why do we have just over half our population voting when the other half isn't? Maybe that's a problem. So I won't say it's crazy to say that we've had this many. I think it's maybe more accurate and better for us to say, why do we have so many people not voting? When we look at our voting population, based on those statistics, we have something like 1/3 of our population that can't vote, right? Kids. But then you also have about 1/3 of your voting population not voting. That's not really good or impressive. That means we have around 80 million people just not taking part. So the quote goes something like, bad officials are elected by good citizens who do not vote. I would think that most people, adults or kids, aren't happy with government in some sort of way, but they also are accountable to that. If the government's good or if it's bad, it's partially my fault. It's partially your fault. Well, not yet. You're not 18. It's partially parents and guardians and adults' fault. If we have something awesome going on in our government, it's also partially our fault. Like, good job. Pat yourself on the back. But if things are really bad, well, it's our responsibility. It is our fault. So when you have 1/3 of the voting population not doing anything, if it's really good or if it's really bad, it's their fault. We are all accountable. So hopefully your generation improves this. Registering to vote is not hard. It's super easy. It's probably quicker than creating a Snapchat account, to be honest. Even Facebook brings up the registration in a few easy steps. Now, in addition to voting, there's a whole nother aspect that we need to consider. because even if we have 100% voter registration and everybody's participating, do we know what we're voting for? Do we know how to vote? Do we know what our own beliefs are? Do we know enough about the key issues? We know our beliefs on the key issues, but do we even know the other side of the key issue? So this is the hard part, because you have to do research and you have to read and you have to want to understand what the other side is to see how complicated issues are. You have to understand what all the political party stances are. And this is where many people tune out, because they want something quick, they want a summary, they want the spark notes of life, right? It's a microwave society. You want the 5-minute abs, the 5-minute this, fast food this. So they don't want to spend 15 minutes to read when they could just decide in 30 seconds with a political ad, or they could see a Facebook meme and say, okay, that's what side I believe on. So as good citizens, you are responsible to being well informed. A good start is to see what you believe and why, and what the key issues are, what the candidates believe, and not just what they believe and not just what they say, but what they actually do and have done. So can we check out candidates' records? A lot of people complain about Congress, but they never check govtrack.org to see what their record has been, what they actually do, their actual actions. Another good place to start for you guys is procon.org, to try to look at all these different key issues and controversial issues and to see what the other sides and the other arguments are. It's not like half our country are idiots if you're on one side or the other. They're very smart, they just see things slightly different. So can you find out why they believe that? And then it's not even necessarily to change your belief, but even just to understand it so we can work better together and have maybe some sort of compromise. Another good place to start, which you guys did when you voted, is I made you take the I Side With quiz. So this shows what your political stances are, what political party you most align with, and what political candidates you most align with. And if you checked out my video on the results, it's kind of funny because most of you voted against what you actually believed. Another responsibility is being informed with politics, with current events, with history, and with other issues. And a lot of these issues pertain to like social studies in general. That's not just me self-promoting, that's saying for you to be a good citizen, you should know at least a baseline knowledge of all these things. You should care a little bit about social studies, and as a matter of fact, it does matter. For example, for you to vote wisely, you should probably know what you're voting for and who you're voting for. If you don't understand basic civics or even politics, you may not actually be making the best choice. And these choices do impact you. It impacts your livelihood, your job, your family, impacts housing, impacts laws, impacts taxes. So it is the craziest thing when I hear like, why do I need to know this stuff? It doesn't impact me, it doesn't impact my life. And I'm like, no, it certainly does. It impacts everybody's life all the time in all sorts of ways. But again, if you don't know basic civics, then yeah, you would think that, but you're wrong. This stuff matters, and it's your responsibility to know at least enough and to care at least enough to try to pick somebody to represent you and your job and your family and the issues you care about and for your future. So another big one for this class is to actually take part and be active in government. And that means a bunch of different things to start. And one of the things to do that is improving your community. As I said, there's many ways we can do this. It could be writing to the news item, writing to the daily item. It could be writing to the sound off, which sometimes can be a disaster if you read those comments. It could be even just writing comments on Facebook. That's technically taking part in government. Or maybe you could write something to Hobart News. You could publish your own work. You could publish your own research. You could go survey people and poll people around here in our school, teachers, students. You can write or call or visit your representatives. You could create petitions yourself to present to representatives or even school boards. You could also serve in the public office yourself. If you say, forget these people doing it, I'm just going to do it myself. I think the biggest thing is that kids think maybe you need to be a president or you need to go to law school, but you don't need to do all these great things. You probably won't change the world, but you can definitely change your community. It's not like it's far-fetched to say that you couldn't run for like a school board or something like that. And if you don't even want to go that far, you can almost just volunteer for anything around the community, or you could set it up yourself. We have kids at our school do this all the time. You could help educate people in the community, or even just educate your friend group. And I know it sounds silly, but it's not totally trivial. But even just sharing information online, like a share on a Facebook, it is something. It's not everything. It's not too much, but it is something. If you do have great information, let's say about some sort of social issue, maybe that would help a couple people. Maybe a lot of people would just ignore it, but it is something. Educating people is something. So I want to leave you with this. We've had plenty of students at our school do plenty of things for the community. I'm sure some of you can think of some examples of your classmates or maybe upperclassmen, 11th and 12th graders that have done awesome things for the community. Our community does have its problems, that's for sure, but you're also responsible for what we do now. You're not accountable for what happened in the past. You shouldn't feel guilty about anything. But it doesn't mean that you can't take part and improve it now and today. Does that mean volunteering? Does that mean donating? Does that mean sharing a post? Does that mean creating a community cleanup? Does that mean painting a building? Maybe. You still have the opportunity to take part. You're still responsible for what happens now. The last responsibility I've listed is to respect and protect others' rights. I think one of the greatest parts of being a citizen here is having the rights that we do. Of course, that I've stated before, our rights are made up. They're whatever we want them to be, and they can be taken away like this. I wouldn't say that they're God-given, but they're government-given. We have a Bill of Rights that spans 10 amendments, but other countries might have 17 or 7 or 47. It's whatever we want it to be. And we don't have our rights unless they're enforced. I think we forget that we have plenty of amendments, but then when they're not enforced or backed up, they don't mean anything. They're just words. Historically, you have examples like Japanese internment. You have examples like the Alien and Sedition Act when they're locking people up for saying like, I don't think we should go to war. And the government says, boom, 10-year sentence in jail. Or you can even think of like your rights, like the Patriot Act or what Edward Snowden leaked out to everybody, that the government is spying on you. So, your rights, they are super cool. They're super awesome. I love them, and I think our country's one of the best because of them. But they are just like made up. And we could add to it, or they could be taken away or deleted. It's whatever we want it to be as a people. Now, to circle back to one other point I made, I think in yesterday's video, with respect, you should respect people's property. You should respect their rights, even if they're not respectable people. So if you do get a serial killer, but the serial killer wants to have a fair trial just like everybody else, and he has free speech, and he wants to make a statement that is like awful, makes no sense, and he says the earth is flat and the alien spaghetti god told me to kill all these people, you should still let him say it. It's totally wrong, but that's free speech, that's a fair trial. You don't have to respect him, but we need to respect our country's values, and we should respect the Bill of Rights. So we can end on that note, and that's all I have for you guys. Let's go over the review questions. Number 1, identify several civic duties. Number 2, identify several civic responsibilities. Number 3, explain the importance of both civic duties and civic responsibilities. Answer those in comments, guys. That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to complete the review questions and comments, the end of the lesson questions on Google Forms, the quiz, which it should be pretty quick, and then the review guide. It's up to you. Remember, the review guide, it's whatever you want it to be. If you want to go over every single one, if you just want to glance at it, if you want to do half, if you want to study a different way, it's totally up to you. But you do have a test tomorrow. I would like you not to cheat. You have to live with yourself at night. I can obviously not monitor everybody, but I have provided you the opportunity to hop into the live video chat as where you can work with your classmates through it. Good luck with today. Let me know if you need anything, and good luck with your test tomorrow. When we come back the following week, we will start our project, as you guys know. All right? Have a good one. Thanks for watching. See you guys.